Thank you, PJ. It is time, overdue, in fact, for another edition of the Pair and a Spare podcast. I'm Justin Gaard from The Fan. We've got Chip Scoggins from the Star Tribune, Ryan Burns from GopherIllustrated.com. We are brought to you, as always, by our great partners at Jack's Cafe. Make your reservations. You can see it if you're watching on YouTube right below us. It's going right underneath Burnsie's chin right now at jackscafe.com. It is officially brunch season. We'll hit on that in a little bit, but it's great to see you guys. It's long overdue. Feel like it's been a couple of months since we last chatted. How's everybody doing? Are we good?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I imagine, Chip, you will not go outside for the next 3 days because of the air quality alert that was issued, and you just want to play it safe. And so you probably went to Costco or Walmart or wherever you go in Woodbury to get all the supplies that you needed for this air quality alert for the next few days. How you holding up?
Hunker down. Yeah, I don't like the air quality. I like being able to see the sun when it's sunny. Yeah. So yeah, and I'm on burning a little PTO after the Wolves playoff run here. So
yeah, it was quite a month. It's already June. The nice thing about when the Timberwolves go on a run, they get you right into summer, and now it's like 6 weeks until football season, essentially.
I checked my
Delta app a couple of days ago. I'll check it now. Burnsie, it's like 53 days until we check in or something.
Yeah, until we get to head to Vegas, which we're still trying to convince Chip to spend some of the Star Tribune money to join us out there with Randy Johnson, but it's somehow right around the corner already. I know we say this every year on this podcast, but I just feel like it sneaks up on us.
Well, part of it is because you've been out to sea for the last 4 months, and Chip mentioned his PTO. He's about to take some. I looked at our family calendar. I have 72 hours somewhere around the 4th of July where we'll be able to go do something that isn't kid related. But you're about to go on the big fishing trip that you always do with your dad and some others this weekend. But you just got off an elaborate, exotic, lengthy Alaskan cruise, Ryan Burns. Give us the breakdown of the Burnsie cruise experience.
Well, I'll tell you that for someone who had never been on a cruise before, and I didn't really know what my expectations were going to be for a mid-May cruise to Alaska. So we flew into Seattle and then departed. Boy, I felt like a 10-year-old on that boat, considering how young I was compared to so many other people there. Even my parents were looking around, and my parents are in their early 60s, and they were like, I feel young. And I was like, well, I mean, it's an eclectic crowd, so there weren't too many kids, but being able to go up to Alaska and go see different places. I mean, we started off with a bang in Juneau, where we took a helicopter on top of a glacier and went dog mushing.
See those pictures. I did see those pictures.
It was an experience I will never forget, being able to I'll be honest, I found some snow that had not been touched, and I had to try it. So I haven't died yet, didn't get food poisoning, didn't get anything, which I know would have been the Chip Scoggins. Can you imagine if he would have watched me eat fresh Alaskan snow up there?
I would try it. So did you do some fishing though? You get some fishing in?
I did not do any fishing. My father went out and caught, I'm trying to think, caught some, I think they're called rockfish. He caught halibut. So he had those ship home too. I did take a Zodiac out on in one of the fjords. So that was really cool. I had 7 bald eagles in a tree next to me. Again, we're very spoiled here in the great state of Minnesota, where, I mean, here in Roseville, I know I saw a bald eagle the other day, but for a lot of people, that's what you're coming up to see. And when zip lining, I mean, I did a lot of different things. I wanted this to be very excursion heavy, especially if you're going to go to Alaska, spend some of that adult money that I'm starting to have, spend it in a good way. But it is an interesting experience being on a cruise boat, especially when there's a couple of sea days. So I think I would cruise again, but Alaska is one of the most beautiful places I certainly have ever been to.
So how long was this? How long was the whole trip, and how many stops did you make?
Trip in total was a Saturday to a Saturday. So we flew in the day of Chipper, which
my gosh. No.
You just ruined this whole day.
No chance.
Which we had a little bit of weather. We had to, it would have been interesting if our flight would have actually gotten delayed. We would have been pushing it there to get to the boat, because they will leave without you. Let me tell you, I watched a couple of people. Because as Chip, I'm sure you know that you get a set time where it's an all aboard at, say, 8:30. they'll hold it for like a few minutes, but if you're late, you're going to be doing the run of shame of which you can tell these people ain't ran in a long time.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And it's very interesting. But we went to
how do you book a cruise and then get there late? Like you booked this months in advance. How do you show up other than flight or whatever? But how do you show up?
Well, it would be like if you went out on say you got to the dock that day at 7 a.m. for say you were in Skagway, Alaska. Well, you got to be back to the boat by 8 p.m. So you have 13 hours, and then say you get lost in a saloon somewhere or wherever you are. Time gets away from you. So we saw a couple of times where I don't know how. And that's the thing about Alaska. It's like some of these towns are very small. They're tourist traps or whatever they are at this point. I don't know how you get out of there. I don't know where you stay. Like, there's a lot of logistics. I'd be very curious to hear from those couple of people that we saw. What happened to you? How do you catch up with the boat at the next stop or whatever it may be?
Right.
But I think we stopped in total 4 different times, including one last stop. We got to do a nice little tour in Victoria, Canada, which is right across from Seattle. Beautiful, beautiful town. But just so many different places in Alaska where you're just like, I know there hasn't been a footprint there from a human in decades, if not a very long time. And that's very much my vibe up there.
Well, we're happy for you, Burnsie. We're
Blessed.
very, very happy for you.
Yeah.
It is funny when you do feel young at places at our advanced stages.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people, a cruise is a once in a lifetime deal, especially a lengthy Alaska one like you. I mean, who has time to just, hey, we're just going to roll to Alaska, and oh, by the way, here's how much it's going to cost. And so I'm guessing it's a lot of retirees and people that are spending that nest egg and worked for 40 years to try to go do stuff like this, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to know some people that you just happen to see always in the hall walking back to your room or always at the buffet or wherever it may be. I'll also tell you, the buffet experience was something.
Yeah. It never ends, right?
Well, it never ends, but also manners go out the window.
Oh, boy, really?
There are some people where I don't know who raised you, but I know that I would have got a stern talking to back in the day if that's my behavior in those scenarios. But I ain't gonna throw stones that too far. So it's just a very interesting experience. Or even at night, you always had like a show to go to, a comedian, a performance, whatever it may be. So I certainly used the drink package. I even tried a Alaskan IPA in your guys' honor.
And
attaboy.
It was one of the most bitter things I've tasted in some time. But I'm sitting there after I got off the Zodiac, and then the waitress was really pumping up this IPA, and I went, you know what? For the boys, for the podcast, had to do it, had to try it again. I finished it, boys, but I'm still not an IPA man.
You were like go back for seconds, basketball player. You were one and done. You were you were Coach Cal, one and done on all of it.
We switched to a honey lager, I think, after that one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good for you, Chipper. Have you ever been on a cruise?
I have not, and as I was telling you boys before we came on here, I would have a hard time. This may shock you, but I get a little anal about time. If I'm on a schedule, I'd always feel nervous I'd be looking at my watch all day long, like how much time do we have? We got, to get back to the boat. And so I don't know that I'd ever be able to like completely relax. Like when I was on the boat, maybe, but if we're out, when it docked and you're out doing your excursions, I don't know if I could enjoy the time because I'd always be so nervous about, okay, we got to plan this much time to get back and this much time to get. I just, if I go to a Caribbean island or wherever,
yep,
I want to just be able to be on chip time and just sit there and not have to worry about looking at my watch.
I understand that. The point of being in a place like that is to not have to worry about time. I get that to a certain extent. I do wonder. I don't know what the benefits packages are like at the Star Tribune, but do they have things to address mental health and, and anxiety and issues?
I'm sure.
Because you heard Burnsie, you dock at 7, you have to be back 13 hours later. Like that should be enough time to have chip time, but also get back on chip time, which is 6 hours earlier than you're supposed to depart for the next, voyage.
Yeah, but you never know. You're not familiar with your surroundings. Like I don't know like what's going to be out there.
Yeah.
I don't know the lay of the land and how long it takes to get around from here to there, so it's like if I don't know my routine,
Yeah,
I can't get comfortable.
I understand.
Here's what I would tell you, Chip. I would tell you to go do a bunch of excursions, go do a bunch of events, but I would book it through the boat, because if you book it through the boat and something goes crazy where a bus gets stuck somewhere or whatever it may be, and you miss the time, they will hold the boat for you because you booked through the cruise. So that's what I would tell
That
you
would
to
give me a
do.
little peace of mind.
Is
That would
go
give me some peace of
live,
mind.
go
Yeah.
do your excursions, and say you're supposed to get back at 7:30. The boat leaves at 8. Well, guess what? You got a little bit of leeway there that if you are late, because you booked through the cruise, that they will hold the boat for you, Mr. Scoggins.
But that would give me a little peace of mind, but not a lot, because
They
I just don't
can't
like being
leave
late.
without you.
I would rather be 3 hours early than 2 minutes late. I just don't like being.
I agree with you on that. You and I are in lockstep there. Maybe not 3 hours, but you and I are in lockstep in terms of being early.
I just don't think I would. I don't think I would get the enjoyment out of it, and I'd probably drive my wife crazy and whoever's with me crazy, because I would just be so antsy and restless.
I think in like the Ohio State Buckeyes do the Buckeye Legends cruise where they raise like $5 million in a weekend. I think we need to do a Pair and a Spare cruise. And we'll do it. Well, it'll just be like a quick little 3-day one, so that Chip only has to worry for like one day.
I'd make you guys miserable, man.
A Pair and a Spare cruise
to the Bahamas.
Yeah, Miami to the Bahamas. That'd be an easy one. If he gets lost or left, it's easy to get. There's planes from Miami to the Bahamas every hour. So we'll be able to figure. I think the Pair to Spare cruise is the next iteration. That's the next.
I would do it. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll think about that. We'll consider that. I went on one cruise when I was 12, a Disney cruise. They kicked it into high gear the last day to get us back to land. I got seasick, banged like 18 hours of just being completely sick. Haven't been on a cruise since, but would love to do it. I'd love to do what you did, Burnsie, Alaska, or a place that you've never seen.
Right.
Or an easy way to bang out like a bunch of different places, like Chipper said, Europe, somewhere like that. It'd be phenomenal. That would be absolutely phenomenal.
Again, if you're worried about the seasickness, we can give you a little bone-ine, which the waves, again, I'm not the correct barometer here because I've spent too much time on a boat in my life. Well, good for me.
Yep.
But my wife took some bone-ine. I didn't think it was bad at all. I mean, you're on a gigantic cruise ship, but I would highly recommend anybody, if they ever want to go see Alaska, it is truly, truly beautiful.
Last thing, how did a big guy like you handle the accommodations? Were the rooms big enough for you, Burnsie? I know you're not the smallest guy in the world.
Yeah.
6'5", 6'6", whatever you are.
I tell you, if I was 6'7", I would have been doing a lot of ducking. But at 6'4", we fit in the room. We got a balcony room. So one of the days we went into Glacier Bay National Park, had the binoculars. You're able to see whales.
Nice.
You're able to see we saw a lot of mountain goats or whatever they are up there. I can tell you. Very, very cool. I mean, it's not a big room, but it's big enough. I mean, I can't imagine getting an inside room, which is the cheapest, and not having a view and just kind of feeling like you're stuck in a box. I'd pay to have at least access to look outside, especially for an Alaskan cruise. But I felt at 6'4", you were big enough. Yeah.
Outstanding. Well, I'm glad you got some time and you came right back to the recruiting meat grinder, which we're going to talk about towards the end of this podcast. But we do, I think, want to touch on really the week that was in the SEC meetings, where I liked it how somebody phrased it. Greg Sankey talked, and he talked a lot. He had a lot of things to say, whether it was on Feinbaum. We apparently could have booked him for the Pair and a Spare podcast. I should have been able to think about that.
No doubt.
Because they had a lot to say. And what they're all trying to figure out right now, the brokers that be in college football, among other things, they're trying to figure out the new college football playoff format that won't go into effect until 2026. They still got the 12-teamer coming up here, but they're trying to figure out how many teams they want. Everybody thinks they want 16, and who those teams are going to be, where they're going to play, the whole bit. They'd like to figure this out by December 1st, I think is what we saw. But we'll give you some of the nuts and the bolts, and then I'll just kind of throw it to you guys. There's two plans that are currently being debated and talked about that have kind of come to the forefront, and it's a lot of numbers, and it's a lot of I get confused, so I had to write it all down. There's two plans that they're allegedly considering. The 5 + 11 plan, Burnsie, that equals 16. All right. I double checked it because I don't
All
know
right.
that either. This plan would be the top 5 conference champions and 11 at-large selections. The ACC, the Big 12, and it sounds like the SEC now favor this plan moving forward. Then there's the 4 plus 4 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 plan. Now that only equals 13. I don't know why they didn't just add the plus 3 for the at-larges, because that's 4 automatic bids for the SEC, 4 automatic bids for the Big 10, 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12, 1 for the top conference champ from other 6 leagues. I call that like the Western Michigan PJ Fleck team that used to get the CFP Power 6 bowl game bid, and then 3 at large. Big 10 likes that plan for reasons that we'll go into, but I don't know how to open the discussion, but Chip, I'll let you just kind of take it wherever you want to go. Those are the 2 plans that they're talking about and trying to figure out how to do all of it.
Yeah, it's interesting that the SEC at their meetings first floated support for the 4-2-2, 4-4-2-2-1-3, along with the Big 10, because we know the Big 10 and the SEC are the biggest and the richest and the best, and they're the kings of the world right now, and so
they get to decide. Really,
they get to decide. I mean, it's
pretty much
their
up
world,
to them.
and
yes.
It's their world, and everyone else is just living in it.
Yep.
I think we've said multiple times on here, I don't want it to be the Big 10 SEC challenge, the college football playoff. Ironically, our friend Scott Docterman had a piece, I think either today or yesterday, from The Athletic, that even though the Big 10 favors the 4 automatic qualifiers from them, if you go back, if you look at the last 4 years, they would have had fewer numbers than if it was the 5 plus 11. I just don't like the idea of, setting it up so you're guaranteed 4 spots. Most years, guess what? You're going to have 4. The Big Ten is going to have 4. Most years, the SEC is going to have 4. Typically, right? And so I just like to have it, the playoff as as open and inclusive and accessible to as many teams as possible. And we can get into the reason why the SEC or the Big Ten wants this over the SEC, because the SEC won't go to 9 conference games, and they'll schedule light to make sure they get as many teams, as many of those 11 at-larges as they can. But guess what? If they go to 5 and 11, on a typical year, the Big Ten and SEC are going to get, 7 or 8 of those, maybe 9. Right. Yes. So I don't know that it's going to be that much different. I don't like saying you're guaranteed to get 4 every year.
I think the interesting part from my perspective is the way that Sankey was able to get the media to really buy into it, where he came prepared with this media packet that apparently, and to your guys' point, I mean, he talked on every single college football show he could find to proclaim this from the heavens, that this is the way and the Big Ten is wrong. Now, I think what do we think of the Big Ten silence here so far?
I don't
think of it.
I don't know really what.
I don't think if it says it. I don't think it says much about anything. I don't know. I mean, they haven't had like these public meetings. You know what I mean? Like Petiti will be talking in what we just said 6 weeks, right? Maybe before. There's some more meetings coming up. I think June 18th in Asheville. The FBS commissioners as well as Notre Dame are meeting, so I'm sure people are going to be there staked out to try to get to those guys. I think. I mean, if I had to guess, I think it's. Well, let's let Greg Sankey be the trial balloon, and let's let him throw a bunch of stuff out and kind of take the temperature of what the public thinks. I'm not sure.
Okay.
What do you think?
He's just more. I think he's just more. He's been in that role longer than the Big Ten commissioner.
Right.
He's coming from a TV background and not really in that role in the same way that Sankey has. That he's been kind of the public face of the SEC for a long time here. So.
Yeah, I think you're both right, where I don't know if he's just new and so he doesn't know kind of how to handle it yet in this type of setting. I don't know if the Big Ten athletic directors knew that this onslaught from the SEC was coming, and maybe they haven't talked about it a ton. But I think the interesting part about it is, at least from the Docterman piece and from other things that have come out here in the last week, is the Big Ten's stance of you have to start to play 9 conference games, and the SEC saying, screw you.
Right. Now, the commissioner wants him to. Sankey wants him to play 9 conference games because ESPN wants him to play 9 conference games. It would mean maybe an extra $5 million, I think, for each school, something like that. So the commissioner wants him. The coaches are kind of split. But yeah, the Big Ten, 100%, which I honestly agree with.
Yeah.
Let's just do conference games.
How do you get around? I mean, that's the one thing when you go to the 5+11, how do you get around schedule and balance? Because if you give coaches the options to play a non-conference conference, we know what they're going to take, right? So they're going to take the non-conference every time. But even we go back to last year, and when it's 5 and 11, you're leaving that 11 up to a committee, which we saw last year. All these SEC teams have played a harder schedule than Indiana, and they're better than Indiana. So you're going to have that kind of infighting and comparing schedules and imbalance, particularly if the SEC stays at 8. So I don't know how you get around that because, and I think it's a legitimate concern that if they go to the 5+11, without a doubt, teams are going to schedule easier. You're going to see fewer crossover games from conference to conference. Teams are just going to try to load up and have the easiest schedule possible to try to get, the best rating or the best record, because it comes down to how do you judge 8-4 versus 9-3?
Well, that's where, again, the SEC, and we'll get to the Brett Bielema tweet, which I agreed with wholeheartedly, and we'll get into the nuances of that. But that's where, if you just look at the schedules this year between the Big Ten and the SEC, 13 of the 18 Big Ten schools will have at least 10 power conference opponents. And in the SEC, 13 of the 16 teams are only going to face 9 conference opponents. Now, I took a look at Chip's favorite team this morning before we hopped on here to look at their non-conference. And I think it's Syracuse, East Tennessee, UAB, and New Mexico State. Like, we can get into, is the meat of the SEC, teams 8 through 16 or 8 through whatever, the middle 25 to 75%, probably better than the Big Ten. You could argue that, but the thing I keep coming back to now is we've spent so much time on this podcast talking about how college football continues to change and how it's changing rapidly. And the transfer portal is leveling out rosters like a place we've never seen. 5 years ago, I think the SEC has an argument that their rosters just top to bottom are better because that's where all the talent resides, is normally in the southeast part of the country. Well, because of the transfer portal, and even you look at, and as Brett Bielema, I think, tweeted about, I mean, last year in bowl season, in the last couple of seasons, the Big Ten has been a lot better against the SEC.
Hold on. Stop, though. I get your point. Bowl season to me is irrelevant.
Because you don't know who's playing and
we have no idea who's playing.
Both teams are always losing players is kind of my point I was going to make with it.
Yeah.
You can say the SEC is having opt-outs. Okay, well, so is the Big Ten and everybody else.
Yeah, but
I got to be honest with you. I put zero stock in the bowl season and who wins and winning streaks and all things. To me, it's like I've always said, bowl games is who's there and who cares.
Yes. Now, if you want to say, look at the college football playoff, like in and rolled through the college football this last year, right? So I think that's the stronger argument. Is like, well, some of the SEC teams rolled into the college football playoff, including Chippers, and it wasn't as good as we thought it might have been, right? So that's where I would focus. I wouldn't spend any time using the bowl argument because I think most people are just going to say, who knows who's playing. I mean, you just look at Virginia Tech. They started the people affiliated with the Virginia Tech program didn't even know who their starting center was for the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Before
was his name Matt Leidner?
Exactly. I mean, Matt Leidner has started a bowl game, right? He didn't start any game. He lost 150 pounds because he thought his football career was over, and then he started the game. So the bowls on its face, I don't necessarily buy. The playoffs, though, I think we have like, and
the last two national champions have been from the Big Ten.
Exactly. And so not to interrupt you, Burnsie, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Again, you guys are making a great point, and I'm not going to disagree with you. I just think that if you want the Big Ten to agree to the 11 at-larges or whatever, however you want to frame it, you have to force the SEC to play more Power 4 opponents because, as I mentioned, I mean, the Big Ten is essentially just going to be playing one more power conference game than everybody else. And you can argue that Minnesota playing Purdue and Michigan State is different than, I mean, I wouldn't argue there's a big difference between them and, say, a team like Mississippi State. But I think you just have to figure out what you want to have the Big Ten and the SEC agree on these things. And I don't know if it is going to be, 9 conference games or whatever it may be. But Chip, what do you think?
Yeah. To your point, Burnsie, I mean, there is still that. I mean, listen, the SEC bias, arrogance, whatever it means more. There still is that perception that this league is so much harder than every other league because that's how it was for years. But I agree, and I was thinking about that this morning. What you just said is that we saw it the last couple of years, how the transfer portal has really leveled the playing field across the country. And so we may think it's changed, but the SEC doesn't think it's changed. And their coaches will say our 8 is as tough as their 9. And so until you can get away from around that, I don't know how somebody's got a cave here. And I don't see either side budging on this.
Well, that's the biggest piece to me is how do you get the SEC media, the SEC coaches, just the SEC area in general to acknowledge that in the last 24 to 36 months, rosters across college football have never been more level because of the portal, because of NIL, however you want to frame it, because 5 years ago, I'd probably agree with him that the SEC was much tougher.
For sure.
But now in this day and age, in 2025, it is not. That tier or that gap has never been closer to the rest of the Big Ten. You'll always have the blue bloods in the Big Ten, and they're winning national championships as we've seen the last couple of years. But the floor, and we've seen it, even for a team like Minnesota, continues to be raised because of the portal. And not acknowledging that the portal has changed, especially as we're trying to project to 2026 for this model, I think would be foolish.
One thing that Dr. Mempiece had, I guess I wasn't aware of this, was the idea or proposal of having a play-in within the Big Ten where, the conference champions, the 2 teams, they would get the automatic qualifiers, right? Those 2
of them.
But then you'd have 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5 for the other 2 spots. I assume that's to make it more legitimate, or what's the idea behind that?
I think to make it more legitimate, and that would be in the 4 + 4 + 2 + 2 + 1 plan, right?
Yes, yeah.
I assume it's to make it more legitimate, but also kind of in a way serve as almost division, giving more teams something to play for. So you're not just going by straight percent. So if you're 6th in the Big Ten, hey, you still have an opportunity if you want. I think Bielema said, I love that idea. The issue there is, and if you played it out, if the number 6 team from the Big Ten went through the little play-in tournament and then had to run through the playoff, they'd be playing 18 games, which is more. Now, again, that's rare, but that's crazy, right? And we're already trying to figure out how do you fit in all these games anyway with the expansion, which to me, again, I go to week 0 and start the weekend before Labor Day. So I think that's part of it.
Is that because of Indiana too last year, where people said, who they played, that they have this, they really have a hard schedule?
Maybe. I don't know. Because they were the number. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So it was Ohio State and Oregon, right? That were 1 and 2. Yeah. Is that how it went down? I can't remember. It's I'm coming out of my Wolves coma. I feel like I've been on a cruise ship.
Me too.
Yeah, possibly. It also, let's not be foolish. It's also, you can put those games on television.
I mean, money. That's what it is.
Put those games on Fox and Peacock and get a bunch more money. So that'd be one way. I'd be surprised if they actually did that. I mean, that just seems like it's a good idea in theory.
Yeah.
But I mean, 18 games, that's more than the NFL's playing right now.
Yeah. I think it's too many games. And I do wonder, again, I would bet if you had this either formula for the next 10 years, the number of Big Ten and SEC teams that get into college football playoff would be within 1 or 2 of each other, right? Based on
I would think, yeah.
So it's not going to be that much difference, I don't think, in the overall number of teams you get into the playoff. It's just, I do agree that I think if they go to that 5+1 or 5+11, that teams are really going to
lean into just trying to sneak into the playoff.
Trying to get as many wins as you can without worrying about having attractive games.
I also don't want to go off on too much of a tangent here, but the other thing I found interesting from SEC Media Days was the SEC coming out in support of what the AFCA said about the transfer portal windows, where they would really support going to one transfer portal window, right? I think it's January 11th to the 21st or whatever it may be. And
Right.
it'd be different for teams that end up going deep into the playoff and whatnot. But that's I think one of the other interesting parts of this offseason is hearing Craig Bowl and the American Football Coaches Association come out and say, we want one portal window. Let's get rid of that one in the spring. And then the SEC coming out and saying, and I would imagine the Big Ten will come out and say the same thing. But the question is, do they have the power to do so? Especially because I still think it's inevitable that these student athletes are going to become whatever you want to deem them, employees at some point in the near future. But it does certainly seem like the steam is building and building for one transfer portal window, which, look, I'm in favor of because it's less time of my life. I can
more fishing and cruises.
Yeah. But it is interesting that the SEC came out and said, yeah, this is what we want to.
I would think if you're an athlete, though, you'd want multiple windows,
right?
Correct?
Which
gives you,
of course,
is going to be negotiated on if there's a collective bargaining agreement here in the next 5 years reached or whatever it may be.
And I do think they're going to have to do something like that because otherwise everything that they decide we've already seen it, can just be challenged
go to court. It's going to court.
You can make all these decisions and you can say, here's what we're going to do. And then one person says, well, we don't like that. That is not legal. This isn't that. We're going to challenge it. And then everything's up in turmoil again. So that is the only way to do it. Somehow,
which is why we're still, I think, waiting on the House settlement. We're here now in early June. I think we spent 2 months ago being like, all right, House settlement's coming. Well, guess what? Everybody got their feelings into it. Now we're still waiting.
Guardsy, which model do you like? Playoff model.
I like the 5+11. I like the 5+11, but I only want to do the 5+11 if the SEC also does the 9 conference games, which I think they only really like the 5+11 if they can stay at 8. Is what I think.
That's
right?
it. Yeah.
I'm 100% in lockstep with you.
And I've tried to read everybody that's covering this thing because the SEC thing was funny, where apparently they came in to these meetings liking 4-4-2-2-1, and then by the end of it, it was like I think they like 5 and 11 more. From what I gathered, and
because they know they can get some 5 teams sometimes. They can get 6 teams, maybe potentially.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll happen, but 5 is not unrealistic.
No, and so I like the 5 and 11 because I'm like you. I think we're going to spend too much time, no matter what, especially when they expand it. I'm not going to lose much sleep over who gets spots 14, 15, and 16. Like if I had a preference, I would want them to be some people that aren't there historically, because that, to me, I guess I'm more of what's the word for it? Is it socialism? I kind of like it spread out more, like where things aren't so top heavy all the time, because programs to invest at crazy amounts that they've never done before. You're asking, fans to pay money that they've never had to pay before, including to collectives for players. Like there has to be, I think why the NFL works so well is more people feel like, perceived or real, they have an opportunity to actually do something and have the press box photos that we talk about all the time. And so I like the idea. I like the idea that there's more access to more different programs. And so that's why I like it, because I feel like, it's going to be, if you do the numbers over a 10-year span, it's probably going to look a lot like the 4-4-2-2-1 and 3 at-larges, right?
Yeah.
So, but I like the idea that a team that had a great recruiting class, kept all their players, and had a schedule maybe that was a little bit more forgiving and knocked off a couple of teams that they weren't supposed to. I like the fact that they can have a better opportunity than maybe they could under a system where the power conferences are just guaranteed X amount of spots. So I think I like the 5 and 11 more. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's I mean, again, I go back to most years, the Big Ten and SEC combined are probably going to have 8 teams. But should they be guaranteed every year you're going to have 8? What if the ACC has 3? Now they might get one of those at-larges, but why should they be limited to?
Right.
2, or the Big 12 be limited to 2.
And if you're not a top 4 team in your league, because I'm just, if you're not, let's say they do 4-4-2-2-1. If you're not a top 4 team, like, are we really going to lose that much sleep over you being out of the playoff? You know what I mean? Like, if you're the 5th place team in the Big 10 or the SEC, I'm not, because that by definition that means you've lost a couple of games. And I get it. I didn't read all 7 pages of the document, the Sankey treatise, but I can't. It's kind of the same thing we talk about in March Madness. Like, I can't get all that upset that the team that finished 11th in the Big 10 for hoops got left off. I just can't. Especially when you factor in the strength of schedule stuff and the metrics. Like, everything now is favored for the NCAA towards the big schools, because by definition your strength of schedule kind of becomes this living organism depending on the perception of your league. And this team was ranked in the top 25 preseason. Maybe it was for like a month. Here's a ranked team. Well, they might have sucked, or there's a lot of ways those numbers can lie to you. I do agree over time. The SEC obviously has been a tougher league week in and week out. But I just think, I don't know. I don't like, I can't lose any sleep over, a 5th or 6th place team in a conference not being deemed one of the top 16.
Well, that's where
if it's supposed to be a national tournament. Yeah. If it's supposed to be a national tournament, because you do still need all these other, I think, all these other teams and leagues to have a successful product.
That's where we spent the last half hour debating, like, the nuance within going from 12 to 16. My hope is that it doesn't go further from 16. If we go further from 16,
it will. When does it ever stay this at a number? It always
get ready for college game day, 4th of July weekend.
I know they're talking about growing the men's basketball tournament. Yeah. Like, when is enough? It's never enough, right?
I'm good with 16. Anything higher than that, I just think we're losing the forest. We're losing the forest here in the trees.
Hey, one change, I think they was pretty unanimous. Now that we're at 12, they're going to do straight seeding. That went through, right? Got approved. That was an obvious.
We talked about that. I think. Yeah. If not, we definitely. Yeah. Which that's how it should have been.
That was an easy one. Yeah.
I mean, just think about Oregon's. Oregon's reward
to run into Ohio State.
Oregon's reward for running through the Big 10, winning the Big 10 championship, was having to play them at the Rose Bowl. Rusty. Like, here, by the way, here's the national champ. You get them in the quarters. Like, that's tough. Yeah, that's tough. So I like that. All right, so we'll see. June 18th, as I mentioned, there's another meeting. December 1st is the deadline that Greg Sankey kind of talked about. They want to decide the new format. I hope they find a way to get it to 9 games. Also, the SEC and the Big 10 have explored some type of scheduling partnership, which, again, I think that would be great too. And maybe that's the give and take. I don't know. You say, all right, stay at 8 conference games, but one of your non-conferences against us. Just so that there's at least similar, because I think that's good for everybody too. I know coaches won't like it, although some coaches are like, hey, we want the Big 10. We want the smoke. Mm-hmm. So great.
Yeah, but if you're a Big 10 and you say, okay, you're going to play 9 conference and one of your non-conference has to be an SEC, but they're only going to play 8, I'm not sure they're going to sign up for that one.
Well, that's where I'll remind you, Minnesota's already doing that starting next year, because they play Mississippi State at home next year in their non-conference. And then in 2027, we have to figure out a way to get to Starkville, Mississippi to go listen to cowbells. I don't know if Will Ferrell's going to be in attendance. I hope so. But
I mean, a lot of programs have done it, right? Wisconsin's played, they just had Alabama at their place.
Now they have to go play Bama at Bama this year.
LSU at Lambeau. Like, it's Gophers go to Alabama in like 10 years. Chip will be on a cruise ship somewhere worrying about excursion times.
I can promise you I ain't covering that one.
So you just, and a lot of programs have done it already, which, again, I do think is good,
Yeah, I like it.
Especially if there is going to be more access to the playoff, where, like, it doesn't, again, I can't lose sleep if a team's lost 3 or 4 games and they don't get into the playoff. Like, I do think no matter how tough their schedule is, I'm not.
But we heard it all last year. I mean,
I know, but I didn't lose sleep then. It was just,
I didn't lose sleep, but it's like we heard
about it. But coaches are always going to whine. One thing we do know is
that fan bases and this 9-3. That's what I'm saying. This, how much do we hear about Alabama's whatever their record was versus Indiana's record, and what was more legitimate? I mean, you're going to hear that, and so I don't know that there's any way to avoid that if you're going to have a schedule imbalance. I mean, there's always going to be that, and that goes back to the SEC. That belief that their conference is superior to everyone else, and an inferior record in the SEC they believe is better than a better record in other conferences. How are we to, in some ways I don't know how you compare those. I really don't.
Yeah. It's going to be imperfect. It's the same. It's like why we always talk about it, the March Madness bubble. No matter how many teams you're going to add, there's always going to be a discussion. When it was 2 teams with the playoff, we had issues. When it was 4, we obviously had issues. We had issues with 12. We'll have issues with 16. Like, I think I keep going back to, you can't ask all these schools to do what they're all being tasked to do, right? Trying to figure out how to pay the players, trying to figure out, the last handful of years, facilities, all the things that we ask everybody to do. But then when it comes down to, oh, by the way, what we're doing all this for, we're going to cherry pick who gets to actually play for the championship. That to me doesn't feel that there's a disconnect there for me. I'm fine with 5-11, and I'd love it if everything was equal. It's never going to be perfect when you have, until they just go to like a 60-team super league and do divisions and everybody just funnels right into it. I don't know how we're never going to avoid these issues.
Yeah, because
problems.
As we remind, this ain't the NFL where it's equal. Everybody's on the same footing. It's not
right.
That,
there's no salary cap. There's no contracts. There's no, like, you can't make trades. Like, it isn't.
10 years from now, maybe that's going to be the case. We don't even know if the NCAA will still be here in 10 years, but that's a whole different podcast.
All right. Well, anything else on this? Because this isn't going anywhere. We got plenty of time, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it in July. That'll be. I like that I already have at least one question queued up for everybody that I talk to. Hey, what do you think of the playoff? Well, what are we going to do here? It's always good. And we can, that'll be the dominant thing when we all hit Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas at the end of July. All right. We're going to talk recruiting in just a minute. Also, the Gophers and the Big Ten, they announced some game times that we'll talk about. But let's mention our great partners at Jack's Cafe. They've been partners with us, going on 3 or 4 years now. And had someone that had a meeting with Mr. Kozlak, Bill, recently, and said, Parent of Spare people just keep rolling in, which we love to hear. We love to see. We love when you guys go and send us your tweets, whether it's your birthday, your anniversary. My wife knows I love the podcast. She knows I talk about Jack's Cafe. Bang. Here's my 30th birthday. We love that. The food's amazing, whether you want steak, seafood, salad, whatever it is. The desserts are great. The appetizers are good. The vibe is phenomenal. And as Burnsie knows, you just got off the boat and you're about to go on another boat. So I'm guessing you don't have a full Sunday brunch calendar set, but I have to imagine, Burnsie, it's coming up quickly for you.
Yeah, it's an elite patio. Let me tell you, one of the best that my wife has seen in all of Minneapolis. And I know that she took her friends over there to go have a nice little brunch. I actually just convinced my neighbor here. When I got back, I ran into him out in the yard, and he and his wife of 34 years went to Jack's Cafe to go celebrate their anniversary. He had the walleye. Couldn't say enough good things about it. So whether it's patio season, whether we're anniversary, date night, Chipper, to go get, what's your favorite dessert? I forget.
Creme brulee, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Creme brulee. Best in town. They got the 2 Ps, parking and patio. What more do you need?
Yeah.
Seriously. They get the best parking. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, and then you get in there, it's first class. Like, everything about it's classy. Bill, the service, the food. But to me, if you got parking and patio, that's an A+ right off the bat. So go visit Bill and say hi, and send us pictures. We love it. Like, there's nothing that makes us feel better than we get a tweet with a picture of someone saying, "Hey, we're here for the first time," or "I brought my wife or spouse to a dinner here to Jack's on your recommendation." And make sure you tell Bill that you heard it on Parent of Spare.
Yep.
We'd love it. And shout out to Mark from Rush Creek Golf Club yesterday. As I'm pulling up from the Randy Shaver charity golf tournament, he's turning the carts over for the afternoon group and says, "I love the Parent of Spare. I love the Parent of Spare podcast." Thank you, Mark. Get yourself to Jack's Cafe. Get yourself to Jack's Cafe. Make your reservations at jaxcafe.com. Well, timing is everything in life, as we sit here in an air quality alert and 2 days of a straight rainstorm on a Tuesday morning. It was the first weekend of Summer Splash. Remind the listeners, I'm sure everybody that's listening to this podcast is dialed in. They know what Summer Splash is, Burnsie, but in case somebody found us in an algorithm somewhere or searched amazing college football podcasts and Pair and a Spare popped up. What is Summer Splash and what does it mean to us?
It is Minnesota's first summer official visit weekend where I think they had about 20, 21 guys fly in from across the country, every time zone, came up to the Twin Cities, and they get to show them that Minnesota indeed is not a cold, barren wasteland like the coaches of the SEC or the Big 12 try to tell you. So they take them to Mall of America. They go to Spray Island on Lake Minnetonka. I know Fleck's got a house in the general vicinity somewhere over there. But essentially trying to show kids that no matter what somebody tells you from wherever you are across the country, that Minnesota is actually a very nice place to be most months out of the year. So they had a lot of success this past weekend. I think they got 6 commitments already from it. I think I tweeted out this morning. They currently have the number 10 recruiting class in the country. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, as someone who lives, eats, and breathes it, is it going to stay there? Probably not. But this is showing to me, whether you want to look at their rankings, whether you want to look at their committable offer lists of many of the guys that they have committed in this recruiting class so far. If Fleck can finish strong here in the month of June, and they've still got some bigger fish out there that they're trying to land, such as Roman Voss, who's going to be heading down to Tuscaloosa here next weekend. Pierce Peterson from Triton, he's going to be heading out to Penn State here very quickly. They have some big fish still out there that are waiting to be caught. Now, if you're going to go catch a big fish, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. And so they've got a lot more lines out in the water here, and they have a chance to, in my opinion, land one of the best, if not top 3 Fleck recruiting classes here so far. So I know a lot of people are wondering, well, is it because they're just buying all these players? No, that's not how this works here at the University of Minnesota.
That'd be nice. Yeah, I'm sure they'd like to do it that way.
I hope to get to a point where I can come on this podcast and tell you they went to the Dinkytown McDonald's and did a Tennessee and just put some money in a bag and slid it across the counter there. They're not quite there yet with high school recruiting. They certainly have done a great job in retaining players. I was talking yesterday to Anthony Smith. He's loving life, going to Billy Sushi, and he is.
Saw him at a Timberwolves game recently.
Yeah, he's doing well, as he should be, as one of the
Yep.
best players at the University of Minnesota. But it was a very good recruiting weekend for Minnesota. They've got another one coming up on the 13th. But it is interesting to see that Fleck is doing so well coming off the season that they had. They had a good season. They didn't have a great season. They had a good season. But I think that they've taken, at least in this recruiting class, one of the next steps here. And I think, again, they got to finish strong here. I will reiterate that, especially between now and December, nothing is signed. These are only verbal commitments. But on paper, there is a lot to like about the guys that they've got committed so far.
Yeah, they got to get to the finish line with these guys. Obviously, that's that's. I don't know if it's half the battle to get them committed, but.
Well, they would tell you that the real battle doesn't start until they're committed.
That's it. Yeah, now you got to hold on.
I love
when they go away, when they get away from the fun of the weekend and they go back home and they start visiting.
When you get them off of Lake Minnetonka, when some of them will say anything just to get me off the water.
Right.
I don't want to be seasick. No, that doesn't happen very often.
Did I read this, Burnsie? Is this a unusually good year in Minnesota for the kids coming up, seniors?
I think depth-wise, it's not very good. I think top-end-wise,
the high-end guys, yeah.
Yeah, you got 4 guys in Andrew Trout and Howie Johnson, who are both committed to Minnesota, 4-star guys. And then you got Roman Voss, who, like I said, he's essentially down to Minnesota and Alabama. And then you have Pierce Peterson, who continues to set every track record known to man. And we'll see what he does in the state title meet here coming up here. Very tough to find kids as athletic and big as them, which is I think reflected in their rankings. I think they're both 4-star guys. So it's a very top-heavy class. I don't know that the depth is there. I'd be surprised if this Minnesota in-state class gets to, say, 10 Power 2 signees, which, again, just continues to speak to Fleck has to go around the country to find. And that's where I was talking to a Gopher staffer at camper yesterday. They call this the busiest 23 days of the year.
Really?
Because now you go from summer official visits over the weekend. They had their first prospect camp last night. And now PJ Fleck is essentially on the road at satellite camps here for the next 10 days before he returns home to have another official visit recruiting weekend. Now, their only soft is the entire month of July is now dead That's the term that they use in recruiting. So no one can come on campus and they can get a little bit more recharge time, which I know they're excited about. But again, I think a lot of this too, again, I truly do believe that they have a legitimate shot to land Roman Voss and Pierce Peterson.
What is Voss projected at, Burnsie?
I think both Bama and Minnesota see him more as a tight end.
Is it okay? A tight end, yeah. I mean, nobody's recruiting him as a. Well, I don't say nobody, but
nobody's
Big School
nobody's
as a quarterback, right?
Quarterback. Yeah. It would be linebacker or tight end, but the final two schools, it's tight end. Now he could play other positions, but my comp for a guy like Roman Voss is, unfortunately for our listeners, an Iowa tight end by the name of Sam Laporta, who has been very good in the NFL for the Detroit Lions. Yep. So I think Roman Voss is a very, very, very good player. So is Pierce. But, I mean, if they're able to land Roman, that would be the third number one in a row with Emmanuel Carmo and Coy Parrish. And I understand that Jackson Howard is now on the roster. They didn't land him out of high school. So I know that a lot of people like to get into the semantics there. But landing Roman Voss does a lot of things for a lot of people. I know he's just a collegiate tight end, and I'll say as a former collegiate tight end, I understand I'm not the most valuable position on an offense.
Nice flexed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good for me.
Yeah, we're happy for you.
Look, I wasn't a Big Ten.
You
see how you slid that in? That was just like seamless.
As a former collegiate tight end.
That was seamless.
I was waiting for the pause, but then he just ran right by it. Yeah.
The high-level athlete that I am on this podcast, I'm not even the best athlete on this podcast.
Did you think I was just going to let that go? Like, knowing me as long as you've known me, did you think I was just going to let you slide that in?
I thought you were in airplane mode somewhere at a Delta Sky Club, not really paying attention.
Not soon enough, buddy. Yeah. Not soon enough. So Roman Voss.
Yeah, he's important, both, I think, optics within the state and just the way that Fleck has continued to do well here in the state. Now, I will continue to say I think it's important for – you guys can agree or disagree with this. I think especially for kids outstate, and by outstate, I know there's a lot of different definitions of that. I think for the purposes of this discussion, if you're more than 90 minutes away from Dinkytown, you're outstate in this discussion where you don't grow up in the metro per se.
Right.
There's a lot more Gopher fans, in my hardcore Gopher fans, from what I have found here recently, in outstate Minnesota compared to in the metro, just because it's a melting pot of different people coming to get jobs. And that's where I think that's certainly helped with guys like Coy Parrish, or in this case, Roman Voss too.
I definitely agree with that. Outstate, by the way, for me growing up meant like Farmington. As a first
that's right. The boundaries have changed. Yeah,
like when you
I get into a lot of heated discussions where people even just like there's a lot of different discussions about what is outstate Minnesota, what is northern Minnesota. Don't get me started on that one.
It's a fun summer conversation to have when you're looking for things to talk about on the radio. I remember I was just in Farmington this past weekend and talking to some other first ring suburb kids and be like, I remember coming here in middle school and thinking we were going to Iowa. That's how far it felt. And now Farmington's just like, Farmington's in the metro. Like we built thousands of homes and we're here now. Yeah. So, but you're right though, Burnsie, and we've talked about that a million times, because to those, if you did grow up in the metro, for a million different reasons, and that we've done this podcast before.
Yeah.
University of Minnesota is not necessarily, you grew up in the shadow of it. When you're from Esco or Hugo or Jackson, like that's going away for college, right? Like that's getting away a little bit. And you didn't grow up having that you didn't have summer camps or concerts or high school graduation at the University of Minnesota. So it's smart that this, Burnsie, the Dakota schools have gotten good off kids like that forever. The outstate kid. So it's smart that both basketball and football have started to tap into that.
Well, that is. I mean, I've had 3 kids go to college and they all wanted to go away, so they went. Yeah, we know. But I will say this: I went up, 2 years ago or 3. I can't remember how many years. Went up and spent a day with Isaac Osama up in Cherry, Minnesota, and I could tell you just from talking to Isaac and his family, it's like this was going away to college.
Yes,
coming to Minnesota for him, it was not like, hey, I got a 20-minute. I commute farther to go to work than my kids would go if they had gone to Minnesota. So it's like,
right.
But this was a big deal. This was going away for college for him. So I think those kids that live in the We call it Greater Minnesota at the Minnesota Star Tribune in Greater Minnesota.
Yeah,
What a drop right there.
Thanks, Steve Grove. Appreciate you.
Greater Minnesota, but I do think there is that element to it that they are going away to college when you live in those parts of the state.
Yeah, so
but optically it'd be great though. I mean, we've talked about the emphasis, and you've talked about it with the what do they call the Minnesota Day, the Minnesota Blitz. But they've done a really good job. I mean, the results speak for themselves, and even I'd remind people too, because of how things change. Let's say Roman Voss goes to Tuscaloosa. There's no saying he can't come back here. I mean, Jackson Howard went to Baton Rouge. But Quinn Carroll, who I saw yesterday, went to Notre Dame, right? You know, bounced back to Minnesota and had a really good career here. Like, it's all it's foolish to you mentioned it. The battle is when you commit. The battle never really ends in these days, and you never know when someone's bouncing back to you. So, but yeah, it'd be great to get him again for sure. The number one player. And
I do think this speaks to continuity. What is the phrase that PJ?
Cultural sustainability.
Cultural sustainability.
Please consult me with any PJ Fleckism that you need, because
that's
they're burned into my brain. Cultural sustainability.
But I think continuity, that when you have that and you've been there for so long, even if you have a dip or a down year for whatever, it's not, you're in the minds of kids that are growing up. You're in the thoughts of kids that are growing up from 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. That's what he means by continuity, where kids grow up with PJ Fleck being in their coaches. So you can survive coaching staff turnover, right? You can lose coordinators, but if you have the same staff and the same regime, you're in the conscience of these kids from the early age, and that's where I think it pays dividends in recruiting, that these kids know you, PJ Fleck, and they know the program,
and their coaches know you, right? Yeah. You're going to the same high schools year after year after year, even if they don't have Division I kids that year, right? And you're talking to them, and we've read all those, recruiting confidential athletic pieces, right? Mm-hmm. And in all these different states, it's like, just to have the same faces pull up to the same schools every year for the most part, and obviously led by the head coach, like that says something too, because hey, I sent a player here, another player in our conference played for this. Like, it's the cultural sustainability is real. I mean, you look at the programs that are still rolling, like they have that in some form or fashion, and so it makes total sense.
Yeah, so Fleck's in a good spot here early. There's a lot of time between now and signing day, and I know the emails and the messages will come in.
Yeah, you know what, though? Don't respond to those. I'm sorry I'm interrupting a lot, but because I tweeted that out today. I retweeted your thing, and it's like the salmon returning to Capistrano. Dumb and Dumber.
What a reference.
Like, you just know it's coming. Like, and you would do it this way. But Ryan, you always do that one. Like, I send it out knowing that I'm going to hear, and no surprise, neither one of these individuals, none of them have their own names as their handles, have to do but it's like, I think we're all adults. We all understand. Let's just say this. If the Gopher recruiting class finishes at top 10, like, there'll be a lot more. We'll be talking a lot about. I think we all understand how this works at some point, because it's the immediate but is like,
I missed a joke. I missed it. I'm not on Twitter that much anymore. What did I miss? Was there an argument?
Burnsie tweeted out that right now it stands at number 10 but he immediately does yes, we know it's June 2nd. Like, every thinking, breathing person knows.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's early. It's early.
We got 6 months, right? Until signing day, basically the first Wednesday of December. We all understand that. We all understand this class will probably settle in somewhere between 30 and 50, because that's what happens, right? And as Burnsie's told us a million times, there's not a lot of difference between 30 and 50 when you start parsing out. So we get on this. It's just,
so one of my favorite. Replied to it.
Of course. Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's really early, and half of these kids are going to leave, and blah blah blah. Yeah, we all know. But it's June 2nd. We're reacting to the news. They had a good first recruiting weekend. He's got a pretty good track record here, especially in state, of what's happened here. So I reacted to that strongly, Burnsie, in an effort to tell you, don't react.
I know.
Don't react that strongly.
In my old age, I'm getting more and more Teflon about it. And that's why I even put the disclaimers in it. The point isn't that they're 10th. The point is to show you that they're doing really well. Now, I don't know where they'll finish, to your point, but it's a great start for this recruiting class, whether you want to look at star rankings or committable offer lists. This is shaping up to be one of their best classes.
Just do what I do. Just put down your phone and don't pay attention to Twitter.
I
know you can't do it. I know you have
Burnsie
to.
can't
I
do
know
that.
I know you can't do
either.
that, but it is liberating.
Yeah,
so.
I know.
Take your wife on another cruise. Put the phone down and go on another cruise.
I'll tell you, that was one of the nicest parts. Was I did try to keep my phone in the room as much as possible, and
As you should
be present in the moment, and just
Yeah.
try to smell the roses per se.
Yeah. You don't
Enjoy
want
Alaska while we could.
All right, well, let's wrap up talking about a couple of scheduling quirks. We did get some updated kick times, 6 game times, and the rumors are true that there are a couple of Friday night games. Friday, October 17th, the Gophers will host everyone's favorite preseason top 25 team, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. That's MEA weekend, I believe. That is a night game. I'm going to get the official 7 o'clock on Fox. And then November 14th, the Gophers trip out to Eugene, Oregon. Will also be a Friday night game. Friday, November 14th, 8 o'clock Central Time on Fox. The original Thursday night game, the first game, that's a night game, as it always is. Northwestern State, the next week is 11 o'clock. And then Cal Berkeley, 9:30 Central on Saturday, September 13th. And then homecoming against Purdue is going to be a night game as well. So what stands out about that, Burnsie? I know you love nighttime football.
4 night games just tells me everything I need to know about the TV execs ruling over all of these different things, which, look, I love a good night game as much as the rest of them. And that's 3 night games already for fans. And I think fans showed out really well for night games last year.
Yes.
Which I'm sure played a part in some of these decisions. But this just shows me that TV execs just really want to stagger everything across that they possibly can.
TV windows. We need them all.
Yeah. I mean, but I'm just even looking across here. I mean, you got 4 different TV networks in here between FS1, BTN, ESPN, Fox. Now, I'll tell you, I think the one that's going to be very interesting of that Friday night one is that Nebraska one, where you're going to have a lot of eyes on you on a Friday night on Fox, and especially where a couple of second-year quarterbacks and Drake Lindsey versus Dylan Raiola. That's just Nebraska's recent history of struggling against Minnesota and Minnesota always finding a way. Minnesota gets a home game the week before. Nebraska has to travel to Maryland. Like it's interesting. Now that 9:30 kick is going to kill me out there on the West Coast, but especially with I'm pretty sure I booked a red eye on the way home or something like that. I think I got like a 6 a.m. flight that next morning. But
yep.
I'm a little disappointed the Oregon games are Friday night. I kind of wanted to have a Saturday on campus, just to kind of.
You still can, Chipper.
Yeah, you fly out first.
You want to see a game day. You wanted to see a game day.
I wanted to see a Saturday there, a game day there. But that's the one. I'm hoping to make a lot of the road games because man, there's some attractive road games this year between.
Hell yes, there are.
Easy to fly into too.
The Wrigley,
And you get an extra day for Wrigley too, by the way. You get an extra day of preparation when you come back. I think Wrigley's the next week after the Oregon game.
Yeah, it is. So I was a little bit disappointed on that because I think it'd be fun just to kind of see a Saturday on that campus and what it's like. But you know me in night games when you're writing on the deadline, it's not the most enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, and getting to the ballpark at noon for a night game like you do, that's a long day. I mean, it's you're just sitting there, kickoff isn't for 7 hours. I can't believe how early you were for the Target Center for whatever game that was. Game 4.
I loved your tweet about how'd you get in here?
Yeah, there wasn't anybody at the security desk. I don't even know how he got in because I was there at 2:30 to do the show from the Skyway cage. And at like 2:45, Chip's tweeting from his media seats already. He's already got his laptop plugged in. They hadn't even put all the T-shirts on the seats yet for the fan giveaway.
No, they were putting them up when I was
there.
They're what am I going to do? Sit at home and what am I going to do?
Start your new office.
And I do
coworkers.
I'm kind of weird about this, but I've always liked this, particularly with football, but even basketball, but particularly football. I love to get to the stadium early, a couple hours when it's empty and quiet.
I agree with you.
I don't know why. It's just kind of a thing.
We're more similar than different on a lot of these things.
Come on over to my side.
Well, I'm there with you. You've just taken it like I would say I'm just going to use an example. I would be a liberal in this case, and you would be a progressive. Like, and that's not a political statement. I'm just putting it on
That's
the
right.
sphere. You're way more extreme than I am.
Yeah,
we have a lot of similar thoughts on when to leave for the airport, when to enjoying the stadium. Cell phones, we don't see eye to eye at all. We are complete opposites.
I know.
But the early stadium vibe, I love being at a stadium at like 7 a.m. for an 11 o'clock kick.
It's a quirk,
the
but
sun's
it's
coming up and all that.
Oh my gosh! And
I'm
it's
a romantic
quiet
about that. Yes.
Yeah, and you don't know, like,
Cup of coffee.
You don't know what you're going to see. You know, this place is going to be loud and packed and just, energy. It's just such a dramatic contrast between a quiet stadium and then a few hours later where it's just on fire,
No doubt.
So I've always loved that. So that's part of the reason. Part of it is just my nature, but part of it is I do like to get to a stadium and just kind of take it in.
So did you guys have the feeling, as well as I did, that when last year they didn't get any Friday night games, that the Big Ten was going to come back with a vengeance, and they did get with the 2 Friday night ones?
Yeah, and it doesn't bother me. I know it bothers people because, especially if you play high school football and or are involved in high school football, I understand it. Selfishly, I like it because the weekends are free.
Well, you do have that. Like, you can watch football on Saturday.
Yeah. Saturday, 12 hours somewhere along the line.
Yeah, exactly. I might be able to make one extra lacrosse game for the 8-year-old, or but I understand why people don't like it. It's just that's the way. This is the new reality. Like, we all have to be flexible and malleable in some form or fashion. So I get it. Especially the road trips, I kind of like it. It's like get out there, come back on, and have the whole weekend at home. But yeah, it's going to be the new reality, right? Night games, because night games used to mean something too, right? It was like a big primetime deal. Now it's not any status symbol necessarily. They have TV windows and they're going to try to fill
programming.
Yes,
for some of it's just programming.
That's where this money's coming from. So
that's where even like the 3 home games that are night games on the schedule, very different vibes. You have the one that's the opener where it's all right. We know historically Thursday night. Okay.
Yep.
The Nebraska one to me is still going to feel bigger because
yes, it will.
Friday night on Fox, middle of the season, both teams trying to prove something.
Yep.
And then you have the Purdue one, which you have homecoming night game, which I can't remember the last time there was a homecoming night game.
I'm with you. And you can set the game time for homecoming. Like, you can decide that. That is that's why this one always gets announced, because they allow you to, and I know there's a lot of other stuff going on that weekend. Like, I think Boston College is coming to play hockey on Thursday and Friday. Like, that's going to be a hell of a weekend on campus. There's a bunch of
the nice part is you can set your weekend here in advance, or at least get the group chat going where it's hey, we can do this, and this. Let's start to think about it, plan about it. And I'm all for getting game times out as far away as possible.
For sure.
But now I also understand we're going to get into the 12-day window season pretty quickly here now that we got 6. We got so many early, and now you're not going to go until the 12-day window, maybe even 6-day towards later. But it even appears that the Wisconsin game, after being on Black Friday last year, is now going to remain on Saturday, at least for 2025.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's true. I think that's true, which I know people were bummed by that last year. I totally get it. I kind of thought it was cool. You were the only game on in that window. Like, there's stuff that you can't buy. And when you make your plans for that homecoming weekend, they should include Jack's Cafe. Do we understand? Do we agree on that?
I think so.
Absolutely.
That's called a wrap up in the business. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anybody want some walleye after I get back from Lake of the Woods?
Yes, please.
Catch me some.
Yes, please. That would be great. Have a great trip, Burnsie. Chip, enjoy your PTO.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you guys in a couple of weeks. We'll have some more former Gophers here. We've got some plans for that coming up, and the season's almost here. I mean, we're going to be previewing the season and doing schedule stuff and all kinds of stuff. Big Ten Media Days is in like 6 weeks, so it's coming up quickly. So enjoy the time that you have. Get to Jack's Cafe, jaxcafe.com, and we will talk to you soon on the Pair and a Spare podcast.